ASMR Coffin Radio.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Coffin Radio. I am Heartthrob Rob, and today we are talking about Dark Side of the Ring, Season 3, Episode 9, The Double Life of Chris Kanyon. The bio here reads, in a culture that celebrates machismo and negative gay stereotypes, wrestling innovator Chris Kanyon keeps his own sexuality a closely guarded secret for decades. Dude, growing up, Kanyon was one of my favorite wrestlers. Like, I was a fucking little youngster Mark, and I'm 9, 10, 11 when he's popping out, and I really thought he could wrestle. That Mortis thing was over for me. Obviously, it was a kind of a spin on everything that they had going on with Mortal Kombat, but it's just sad to hear that, someone as good as Kanyon, had to keep his life and, his personal life kind of hidden and guarded, and like they say, a world of machismo ass dudes, big old macho ass motherfuckers that he's got to, pretend. And, I feel bad for the guys like that. It's always the guys that seem to be anti-gay and keep that queer stuff away from me. Those are the guys that are really, hiding what they got going on. Those are the ones that feel guilty about things, and it's just sad. But we have here people from his, that knew him well before he committed suicide, people that knew him very well. They interviewed DDP, the Young Bucks, James Mitchell, Chris Jericho, Brian Cage. Brian Cage does a fantastic job here. And then one of his other friends, I'm so sorry, and then a friend of his that is now an executive at AEW who previously worked at WWE. But look, I learned a couple things that I did not know about him. He was trained by the Fabulous Moolah, or at least kind of got broken in there because he couldn't do any more backyard wrestling kind of thing. He comes in at WCW at Men at Work, and then obviously he comes back as the Mortis gimmick to feud with Glacier. To me, Glacier was that was a big fucking huge build up. So for him to beat fighting Mortis, I thought was pretty good. But exactly, Chris Kanyon or Mortis sees the the writing on the wall when he knows that if the NWO comes, that's going to kill his push, because this is reality-based stuff. All this video game superhero shit is not going to fly no more. So he becomes Kanyon in 1998. Kanyon actually is the one who choreographed the Ready to Rumble scenes and all from that movie. I thought that was pretty fucking cool. He just is trying to hide his sexuality from all the boys. It's so sad. I mean, he almost fakes a porno just so that he can say that he's not gay, and he's picking on his manager, which was James Mitchell. James Mitchell said he would have shot him if they kept fucking around like that. He joins WWE after it's bought by WCW. Or excuse me, he joins WWE after his company WCW has been bought out. He becomes double champ there, and becomes pretty high up, for secondary stuff. But unfortunately, he gets injured, takes some steroids, gets a blood disease from some of the steroids that he left out from his syringe. And when he finally comes back a year and a half later, they have him come out of a box and he sings like Boy George, and he's destroyed by the Undertaker. And it makes you think, is that a rib or is it not a rib? Was he really, like this, or what could it have been? I don't know. It's just so sad to see him come back just to get fucking destroyed by the Undertaker and sing like Boy George and have a lisp and all this crazy shit. Unfortunately, he's let go in 2003. That same year, he does a match with Brian Cage, who's one of his trainees, and he puts Brian Cage over right in the middle, and super fucking stoked to see that. He comes out in 2006 against a match in DDP. He's also diagnosed as bipolar, starts taking bipolar medicine. Slowly, things get better for him. He, gets a regular spot on the Howard Stern Show in 2006. But unfortunately, Cena comes on, and, Kanyon is telling his side of the story why he thinks that WWE won't let him come back, and he says it's because he's gay. Meanwhile, John Cena comes on a few weeks later, a month later, whatever it might be. He says Kanyon never made it because he wasn't good enough. And when John Cena in 2006 says something like that, that's big news. Unfortunately, Ric Flair also makes statements on the Howard Stern Show, also talking about how Kanyon was never good enough and how his time has come and go, and you can tell that really beats up Kanyon on the inside in 2006. It's just sad to see that your legend that you grew up, one of your heroes that you watched growing up in the sport that you love, all of a sudden says that you were never good enough, and the biggest star since Stone Cold, Cena, is saying you weren't good enough either. So just imagine that, those kind of people taking a shit on you. Probably not the best fucking feeling in the world, especially if you're bipolar, especially if you've been hiding your sexuality for your whole entire life. It's just so sad. And unfortunately, April 2nd, 2010, We lose Chris Kanyon to suicide by antidepressant pills at just 40 years old. Still such a young man. Had done so much already. In 2010, think about it. That's 2010, so 10 years prior to that, you're only 30, and then in 96, 97, you're already in WCW, so you're already popping on major wrestling by 25, 26. So to see him go at just 40 years old, it's very, very, very sad to see. It's a sad episode, man. Everyone did really good. James Mitchell does not talk how I ever think he's going to be. I think he's going to be Sinister Minister, slow and methodical, and like this. But he talks like he's kind of coked up. He's not, but I know he's not on drugs, but he looks like he's used to do a lot of drugs. But episode is sad. It's sad to see Kanyon more pissed off and mad at the world, and he's got the pissed off and just turning his hate towards anger. It's sad to see it like that. I thought this episode would be more about like depression and like him drinking or something, or him boarding himself up and just hating life, but it's more like him kind of fucking being pissed off at the world more than anything. So that was kind of bummed me out. I didn't feel like there was a lot meat on the bone here, but they did cover a lot. This episode's obviously not going to cause as much controversy as last week's Plane Ride from Hell, but it was a good episode, but not the greatest episode of Dark Side of the Ring that I've seen. But it's nice to know that we get a full hour-long, little bio here on Chris Kanyon. Well deserved. One of my favorite wrestlers from that era. That does, underrated. Definitely an underrated guy. Though Young Bucks say he was doing indie wrestling before indie wrestling. But and he had a great size, great look. I thought he, was enough on the mic. Your little catchphrase, "Who better than Kanyon?" Nobody. It worked. But sad to see him go. Not my favorite episode of Dark Side of the Ring, but it works. It was decent enough, but not my favorite episode. But let me know what you guys think. We'll talk about it in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and if you like what you're watching, then hop in the coffin. Follow us on social media at Coffin Radio. Coffin is spelled with a K. And that's all for today.
ASMR Coffin Radio.